Now, anyone familiar with this channel will know that when a concrete transfer link emerges, I tend to do a video analysing the player and looking at where they might fit in at Liverpool going forward. But I can already hear a lot of you screaming at me that it's pretty bloody obvious why Alexander Isak would be an incredible signing for Liverpool this summer. Now, that said, I still want to do a deep dive into this player because I really want to hammer home how much I think this would be a transformational signing for Liverpool. And of course, that is a Liverpool that absolutely walked the Premier League last season. So it takes a lot to improve them, but I genuinely think Isak is capable of that. And of course, there is every chance that Newcastle come out in the next 24 hours and say he's categorically not for sale. So I absolutely need to get this video out there as soon as possible. So I guess the best place to start really is with the basic numbers, the stuff that has you shouting at me that it's obvious why he's so good. It's still very, very impressive, I have to say it out loud, because 54 goals in 86 Premier League appearances over the last 3 seasons. Now, only Mo Salah with 66 and Erling Haaland with 84, which is ridiculous, have more. But of course, they do play for better teams. Now, Isak has also been twice key in Newcastle qualifying for the Champions League, which hasn't happened much in recent years. So he's been a big part of that and also helped win their first major trophy in several decades, didn't he, last season, the Carabao Cup. But of course, the less said about that game, the better. We don't want to think back to that final, really, do we? Of course, Isak is also 25 years old, about to turn 26 in September, so really should be heading into what should be his peak years now. So on the surface, it's a good player who is about to get even better, but he's already absolutely incredible. So a lot to like in those basic facts. Now, obviously, you can't put those sorts of insane numbers up if you're not actually an incredible player. So there's no chance of fluking it for 3 seasons, is there? So you won't be surprised to learn that his underlying numbers are also incredibly impressive. And I'm going to bring up a graphic here which just shows you kind of his striking output, really, all the things you would look for in a centre forward. And as you can see, a lot of green bars, a lot of high percentiles there that shows you he's a very, very good player. I mean, 0.62 non-penalty goals per 90 over the last 365 days. That's 88th percentile among all forwards in Europe's top 5 leagues. So he ranks very, very highly there. 0.56 non-penalty expected goals puts him 85th percentile. He's also up there for shots, for assists, for shot creating actions. So we're just talking about an all-round very good centre forward in terms of putting it into the goal or getting chances to put it into the goal. He's just a very, very good player. You can also see on this next graphic as well, compared to other central strikers in the Premier League. So Mo Salah, for example, is not on this, but other top centre forwards are, and you can see he gets good shots and a lot of them, which is a quality that you absolutely want in your centre forwards. I mean, you can see, if you look right up in the top right of that graph, you can see Erling Haaland right up there, which you would expect. He is just a master of that, getting good shots, isn't he, and getting a lot of them. Just below him, Diogo Jota as well, who we have to remember, don't we? What a fantastic player he was, particularly in those aspects of the game as well. So that's the kind of company that we're talking about Alexander Isak being in. He's very, very good when compared to his Premier League peers, but also the top strikers all across Europe. And I think most impressively, really, is that he's doing it for Newcastle United as well. So obviously they're a decent side, but more than a decent side. You know, they beat Liverpool in the cup final last season. But it's more, I'm talking about more kind of their style of play and the way that affects your ability as a striker to get chances. So although they're a top 4 side, absolutely, they were 9th for possession in the Premier League last season. So they have less of the ball. And if you have less of the ball, you've got less chance to create opportunities. They were also 8th for shot creating actions per 90. So more kind of mid-table for those types of things. Not a dominant possession side who will give you a lot of chances on the basis of that. They're very much more of a counter-attacking side, as Liverpool absolutely experienced. And I think, you know, when you think about that and you think about the numbers that Isak is putting up despite that fact, I think that makes them impressive because, you know, if you put him in a side that is slightly more dominant, that does create more chances like Liverpool, they were streets ahead of anyone else in terms of that, and they also have a lot of the ball. You'd like to think there's potential for Isak's numbers just to be uplifted slightly as well. You know, their underlying numbers are already very good and present that he's a good player, but there could be room for growth there, I think, if he's in a slightly more dominant team like Liverpool. But of course, we do know as well that just getting shots, which are the things I'm pointing out there as real upsides for him, is not enough. We learned that from Darwin Núñez. I think we convinced ourselves over a long period of time that, okay, he's getting shots, he's getting a lot of shots, getting good quality shots, getting high XG, the goals are going to follow. But of course it didn't in the end. He was just a below par finisher, and that ended up costing him, and is the reason it hasn't worked out for him at Liverpool. You have to put your chances away at a decent rate, but thankfully when it comes to Alexander Isak, he absolutely does that as well. So he sits 12th in the list of goals per shot in the Premier League last season. That's amongst all players with 0.2. And that's from 95 shots ahead of him. 95 shots he took in total last season. And you think of some of the players who are ahead of him in that list have took 16, 17, 18 shots. So there's some midfielders in there, maybe some defenders as well. So it shows you he's just an incredibly high quality finisher, but also to be up there in that ranking with the amount of shots that he's taken, 95, is incredible. I mean, Haaland's just slightly behind him on 0.18, but again, it shows you the company he keeps as a finisher, really, that, you know, he's up there with Haaland, really, in his ability to put the ball in the back of the net. And, you know, if you're thinking of someone you want to be put through one-on-one, if your life was staked on it, I think Erling Haaland would be right up there. So for Isak to be putting up 0.2 in that regard shows that he's a truly, truly elite finisher. And I think, as this graphic shows now that I'll bring up as well, you know, you look at all the green on that far right hand side. So this is to show you really his kind of non-penalty goals minus his expected goals. So basically, how many goals has he scored against the expected goals that he's clocked up in his career, and it should give you a decent idea of whether he's a good finisher or not. And you can see, like I say, all the green on the far right hand side of that graphic there. You know, he's overperformed his expected goals in 7 out of 9 seasons that we have data for. That shows a consistently good finisher. There's no flukes in there. He's done it consistently over such a long period of time. He's 3.4 goals up on that regard as well over the course of his career. So again, we're just looking at a finisher who has been very, very good at that for a long time. You don't expect a huge dip is coming from him. He's just very, very good in that aspect. And I think, for comparison, and this is the comparison we should be making because it's the guy whose place in the team he's effectively taken, Núñez has underperformed in 4 out of the 5 seasons for which we have available data in terms of goals against non-penalty expected goals, and he's minus 5.1 in that regard overall in his career. So he is a below par finisher. We know that, we've seen that, but the numbers support it. Whereas Isak is on the other side, and then you combine that with the fact he also gets shots. You're talking about someone who is a very, very good striker. But as I say, I guess that comes as no surprise for anyone who has watched him. Now, another aspect I think appeals about this player as well is that he's not just a finisher. He's also majorly involved in build-up and happy to do that. I mean, you think that is very important for Liverpool because, of course, in the end, he didn't use Núñez there. He didn't use Jota so much there last season. He went to Luis Diaz because he could get them up the pitch and he could play with others and link up and keep possession. So it's clearly something that's important to the manager. And I think Isak has also got this quality, despite the fact he's also brilliant on the finishing aspect as well. So I'll show you a heat map here from last season for Alexander Isak, and you can see he's willing to drop into any part of the pitch to receive. Not just maybe left-hand side dominant as maybe you would think of him. There's all those comparisons with Thierry Henry, who was very left-side dominant, but Isak, you can see there, he'll touch the ball anywhere. He'll come out wide to the right, he'll come out wide to the left, he'll come out into kind of almost attacking midfield to take the ball, bounce it off and use it there. So I think he shows you that he's someone who's capable of getting involved all over the pitch. And you can see from this next graphic as well, he's also ranked highly against Premier League strikers for not just being involved in the build-up, but also keeping the ball. So that's showing you against his peers, he's very, very good in that. He's not just elite finisher, he's elite in build-up as well. He's not necessarily, I would say, from having watched him as well, just to kind of go back to the eye test, which we should always use as well, by the way, not necessarily someone you want to go long to all the time. He's not an absolute someone who can kind of bully people completely. He's very tall, but he's quite slim. He's strong, but he's not a monster in that regard. So not someone you're going to have to hit all the time, or you want to give scrappy possession to that they're going to have to battle for. But if you give him clean passes into feet, his technique is absolutely flawless. His first touch is great. He knows how to use his body to fend people off, and then he can play others in, and then Liverpool maybe build from there if he does sign. So he's very, very capable in that regard. And just to underline how good he is in build-up in comparison to other Premier League strikers as well, other elite Premier League strikers. So he averages 2.87 progressive passes per 90. So that puts him in the 87th percentile of forwards in Europe's top 5 leagues. So incredibly good at playing others in as well, and putting them into dangerous positions when he does drop deep, and 2.71 progressive carries as well, so he's 93rd percentile for that. So he's a very capable dribbler as well, which again, so you're asking him to come in deep. Can he pop it off to someone? Can he play someone in behind? Can he carry the ball himself and dribble and get Newcastle into a more dangerous area? He does all of that, and again, a truly elite level. And I think for comparison here, so I'm talking about 87th and 93rd percentile for passes and progressive carries. For comparison here, Haaland is 6th and 23rd percentile respectively for those figures. So just no help whatsoever really to City in build-up. He is just there to put chances away, whereas Isak does all of these things combined, which again, you could talk about Haaland and how good he is as an out-and-out centre-forward, but if you've got someone like Isak there, total all-rounder, Firmino-esque in build-up, but also an elite-level finisher as well, that shows you really how kind of special he is. And I saw Arne Slot in many press conferences last season talk about the need for someone. Yes, they want someone who can finish chances and do all that aspect, but he wanted a facilitator, someone who was able to get involved in build-up as well. And I think, Diaz was a compromise because he's not an elite level finisher, you would say, generally, not as much of a goal getter, but he could do all the build-up things, whereas Isak is the best of both worlds. This just shows you, really, for me, how kind of truly incredible he is as a player and why he's kind of the best striker profile who's out there potentially on the market, although we will see if that is actually the case this summer. So, of course, with all that considered, you're probably asking me, where's the weakness then? Where's the issue? Well, if you do get all this, which is elite level finishing, elite level shot getting, elite level build-up contribution, then there's going to be some areas where he's not maybe the best in the world. And I think one of those is the fact that he's not an absolute pressing monster. Now, of course, he's not terrible in this aspect. Any Newcastle supporter will tell you that. Eddie Howe demands it of everybody in his team, that they work hard and they press, and I've seen it myself. You can tell that he can pull off a tactical plan in terms of squeezing defenders. He presses well. He cuts off the passing lane of a centre half when he squeezes one. He can press two simultaneously when he's given that job. So he's a very smart player and able to execute that aspect of a game plan. But he's also maybe not as strong as Liverpool's strikers in this aspect of the game, I would say. So you look at this graphic here, which shows you recoveries and interceptions for all central forwards in the Premier League last season, and you can see there Núñez and Jota just much more impressive in terms of both numbers, really. I didn't know whether to put Jota in there, by the way, as a comparison, but I think we should, by the way, just to go off on a tangent, we should remember as much a great guy he was, what a fantastic footballer he is, and what a loss on the football aspect he is for Liverpool. He was a brilliant footballer, and again, that shows it. He's right up there for the finishing, wasn't he? And he's in all those graphs. You can also see him in there in terms of recoveries and interceptions. So a phenomenal footballer and very, very hard to replace as well. So you can see Isak there marked in blue. He's just not as strong in that aspect of the game of either of those players. But I will say on this, I'm pretty sure Liverpool will be aware about this trade-off, and they probably think that the upside of that, which is the goals, the shots, the build-up play, everything else, is probably worth it. And like I said, to emphasise, he's not absolutely disastrous in pressing. He's not lazy by any regard, but just not great at maybe nicking the ball so much as some of the players that we've seen playing centre-forward for Liverpool in recent years. So that is something to consider. But as I say, I'm sure Liverpool have had a good think about that and how they mitigate that in the team as a whole. And I guess in terms of another weakness, I suppose you could call it that, we would maybe mention is perhaps the injuries. Now, this gets spoken about a lot with this player, so worth having a look at whether that's true or not. And I bring up a graphic here of his injuries in recent seasons and pretty much all his seasons actually as a professional. And I have to say, my first impression when I saw this is it's not as bad as you would think, is it, for a player who's got a bit of a reputation, I guess, as being injury prone. Obviously, big thigh problem there in the 22-23 season, which kept him out of quite a few games. But other than that, you know, the odd groin tightness, the odd bump and bruise, but not missed too many games. And, you know, he got a broken toe in there, which I just don't think, you know, you can't really blame a player for that. You're not injury prone if you break your toe, are you? Those things can absolutely happen, really, can't you? And it's worth mentioning, he played 34 out of 38 Premier League games last season, so he was available for a big chunk of his last season. Plus, and for me, this is maybe the key aspect of this that's worth mentioning, really, is that Newcastle's injury record under Eddie Howe is not fantastic. They play a very intense brand of football that lends itself to players picking up injuries. And you think, you know, Liverpool had a very similar problem under Jurgen Klopp consistently in seasons under him. Were getting injuries because of the intense style of football that they were playing. So you do wonder whether, if you take Isak out of that scenario, does his injury record improve? An injury record that's already not as bad as is maybe made out, does it get better under Slot? Because Slot, last season, the availability went through the roof, particularly in comparison to the previous seasons under Jurgen Klopp. So, again, I think there'll be a confidence there from Liverpool that if they can get Isak, they can get him on the pitch regularly, because they don't play a similarly intense brand of football, and maybe they will manage him slightly better and be able to get him on the pitch more often. And, of course, if you do that, then goals are going to follow, assists are going to follow, brilliant build-up, everything else that he brings to the party. I think you're getting an absolutely elite centre-forward, aren't you? So overall, like I say, we're talking about a world-class striker for me, who is absolutely ready to slip into this Liverpool style of play, this Liverpool team, and make them even better, feed off better chance creation from the players around him, score an awful lot of goals, and, you know, make this team not just favourites to defend the Premier League title, but also to contend for the Champions League next season as well. So no wonder Liverpool are keen to test the water and see if Newcastle would do a deal. Of course, we have to wait for Newcastle's response here. Are they willing to do this or not? We will see. But what a signing this would be. Now, do let me know in the comment section what you think about all that. What do you think about the prospect of signing Isak? How excited are you about that? And Newcastle fans, if you could refrain from leaving those mean comments, that would be much appreciated as well. And if you can like and subscribe, that would be massively appreciated. And don't forget to head to my Substack as well. More info about the Isak chase on there as well at davidlynchlfc.co.uk. So I'll wrap it up there and I'll see you guys very soon.